The world collapses. Your credentials mean nothing. Your degrees are wallpaper. Your professional certifications are artifacts from a dead civilization. The career that defined you for 20 years just became irrelevant overnight. Unless it didn't. 6 pre-collapse jobs translate directly into post-collapse survival value. 6 careers that trained you for exactly the skills that matter when systems fail. 6 professions that make you valuable, sought after, and protected in the new world. Because what you know how to do is what everyone desperately needs. Everyone else is relearning the basics, figuring out how to survive without the infrastructure they took for granted, struggling to develop skills from scratch that you've been practicing for years as your job. You're not relearning, you're applying. The career that paid your mortgage before collapse is now keeping you alive after. The skills your employer valued are now the skills communities fight over. The knowledge that was your profession is now your survival advantage. But most jobs don't translate. The CEO, the lawyer, the financial analyst, the social media manager, their expertise evaporated with the systems it depended on. They're starting from zero like everyone else. Maybe worse than everyone else, because their identity was wrapped up in roles that no longer exist. The 6 jobs that translate are specific. They share characteristics that make them valuable, regardless of whether civilization is functioning. They solve problems that exist in any scenario. They work with tools and materials that persist when supply chains die. They transfer knowledge that communities need to survive and rebuild. Here are the 6 pre-collapse jobs that become the most valuable skills after, why they matter, what makes them different, and why having one of these backgrounds is the career advantage nobody thinks about until it's the only advantage that matters. Job 1. Plumber, the infrastructure whisperer. Before collapse, plumbers fixed toilets and cleared drains. After collapse, plumbers are the difference between communities that survive and communities that die from their own waste. Why plumbing matters more than almost anything. Water is life. Clean water coming in, wastewater going out. This is the foundation of human habitation at any density above a few scattered individuals. Get it wrong, and you have cholera, dysentery, typhoid, and death. Modern plumbing is invisible infrastructure that most people never think about until it stops working. When it stops, nobody knows how to fix it except plumbers. And fixing in post-collapse doesn't mean calling for parts. It means understanding how water systems work fundamentally and jury-rigging solutions with whatever materials exist. The plumber's knowledge base is profound. They understand water pressure and flow. They know how gravity-fed systems work. They can diagnose leaks and blockages. They understand drain fields and septic systems. They know water treatment basics. They can work with pipe of any material, copper, PVC, cast iron, galvanized steel, and adapt when those materials aren't available. Post-collapse applications multiply beyond pre-collapse work. The plumber isn't just fixing existing systems. They're building new ones from salvaged materials. They're designing rainwater collection and filtration. They're creating waste management for communities that have lost municipal sewage. They're preventing the disease outbreaks that kill more people than violence in most collapse scenarios. A community with a plumber can achieve population density. A community without one is limited to scattered individuals managing their own waste in ways that contaminate water supplies and spread disease. This is the difference between village-level organization and isolated homesteads. The plumber also has tool skills and problem-solving capacity that transfer to other repair needs. Understanding pressure systems helps with other hydraulic and pneumatic applications. Pipe fitting skills transfer to other fabrication. The diagnostic thinking, trace the system, find the failure, devise the fix, applies to any mechanical problem. Why plumbers over other trades? Plumbing is the most immediately critical trade post-collapse. You can survive without electricity longer than you can survive without clean water and sanitation. Electricians are valuable. We'll get to that. But plumbers are first priority survival infrastructure. The plumber's value is recognized quickly. The first typhoid outbreak, the first contaminated well, the first community dealing with waste management breakdown, everyone realizes they need a plumber immediately. This recognition translates to protection, resources, and status. Plumbers don't get sent on dangerous scavenging runs. They're too valuable. They stay protected and provisioned because losing the plumber means disease kills everyone. The skill is also relatively rare. Fewer people have plumbing knowledge than general handyman skills. You can find someone who can swing a hammer. Finding someone who understands how to properly slope drain lines, calculate flow rates, and prevent cross-contamination is rare. Rarity plus necessity equals maximum value. Job 2. Diesel mechanic, the mobility maker. Gasoline engines are common. Diesel mechanics are not. And in post-collapse, diesel is king. Why diesel specifically? Diesel engines are simpler and more durable than gasoline engines. They don't require electrical ignition systems that fail when electronics die. They can run on a wider variety of fuels, including biodiesel, which can be produced locally from vegetable oil. They last longer under heavy use. They're the engines on generators, farm equipment, heavy trucks, and industrial machinery. The diesel mechanic's knowledge is force multiplication. A working diesel truck moves more supplies than 100 people carrying loads. A working diesel generator provides power for medical equipment, communications, and critical manufacturing. A working tractor plants and harvests food at scale. All of these require someone who can keep diesel engines running when parts and diagnostics tools don't exist. Post-collapse mechanics is different from pre-collapse mechanics. Modern mechanics are parts swappers. Diagnostic computer says sensor is bad. Replace sensor. Post-collapse mechanics is troubleshooting, repair, and fabrication. The mechanic has to diagnose without computers. Repair parts that are supposed to be replaced. Fabricate replacements from scrap. Rebuild engines from multiple dead engines. Keep machinery running through ingenuity when the supply chain that made the machinery possible is gone. The diesel mechanic also understands fuel systems, hydraulics, and power transmission. These systems exist in multiple applications beyond vehicles. Understanding how they work enables repair and improvisation across a wide range of equipment. Welding and fabrication skills often overlap with diesel mechanics. Heavy equipment requires heavy repair, which means welding and metal fabrication. A diesel mechanic who can also weld is doubling their value, creating new parts and fixing broken ones. The timing advantage: diesel mechanics become critical about 3 to 6 months into collapse. Initially, vehicles run on existing fuel. Eventually, fuel runs low, vehicles break down, and keeping anything mobile requires mechanical expertise. Communities that want to maintain any technology level above walking and hand tools need mechanics. Those with diesel mechanics maintain capability longer than those without. Why diesel over auto mechanics? Gasoline vehicle mechanics are useful, but limited. Gasoline supplies deplete faster than diesel. Gasoline engines are more complex and dependent on electronics that fail. Diesel is simpler, more robust, and more sustainable long-term. Diesel mechanics have wider applications to generators and agricultural equipment that gasoline mechanics don't. The mechanic's value is obvious and immediate. Vehicle breaks down, everyone stands around useless until mechanic fixes it. Generator stops, power is gone, until mechanic repairs it. This visible value translates to protection and resources. Mechanics, like plumbers, are too valuable to risk. The social position is strong. The mechanic is the person who keeps the community mobile and productive. This isn't abstract value. It's concrete capability that everyone depends on daily. That dependency creates security for the mechanic and their family. Job 3, nurse or paramedic. Practical medicine that works. Not doctors, nurses, and paramedics. This distinction matters enormously. Why nurses and paramedics over doctors? Doctors are trained for diagnosis and treatment planning in hospital environments with full diagnostic capabilities and pharmaceutical options. Strip away the hospital, the labs, the imaging, the pharmacy, and most doctors struggle. Their expertise requires infrastructure that doesn't exist post-collapse. Nurses and paramedics are trained for practical care with limited resources. Trauma stabilization in the field, wound care without ideal conditions, working with what's available, making do. These skills are exactly what post-collapse medicine requires. The nurse's knowledge base is implementation-focused. They know how to actually perform medical procedures, not just prescribe them. IV placement, wound cleaning and dressing, medication administration, vital sign monitoring, physical assessment. These hands-on skills persist when diagnostic technology dies. Paramedics add trauma care expertise that's critical in collapse scenarios. GSW treatment, fracture stabilization, hemorrhage control, managing shock, airway management, all without hospital support. This is survival medicine, and paramedics train for it specifically. The medical knowledge also includes preventive care that's critical post-collapse. Sanitation to prevent disease, nutrition to prevent deficiency, basic hygiene to prevent infection. These simple interventions save more lives than heroic surgery because they prevent the conditions that kill. The nurse can also train others. Medical knowledge isn't proprietary. Teaching basic first aid, wound care, and illness recognition to community members multiplies medical capability. One nurse can create a dozen people with basic medical skills. This scalability is unique to nursing because their knowledge is practical and teachable, not esoteric and dependent on years of medical school. Why practical medical over specialized medical? Cardiac surgeons are useless without operating rooms. Oncologists can't treat cancer without chemo. Radiologists need imaging equipment. Specialized physicians trained for high-tech medicine in narrow domains have almost no relevant skills post-collapse. Nurses and paramedics, especially those with ER, trauma, or field experience, have the broad practical skills that apply across all medical situations with minimal resources. They're generalists with hands-on capability, not specialists with narrow expertise. The medical role also provides community status without creating dangerous dependencies like medicine trading. The nurse who treats injuries and prevents disease is valued and protected, but they're not hoarding medicines that people will kill for. They're providing care with skills, not consumable supplies. This is safer value than being the person with the antibiotic stockpile. The scarcity factor. There are fewer nurses and paramedics than doctors in most areas, but their skills are more directly applicable. Finding someone with practical medical training post-collapse is finding someone who can immediately start saving lives. Their value is recognized instantly. The first serious injury, the first difficult childbirth, the first epidemic, and once recognized, they're protected fiercely. Job 4. Farmer or agricultural worker. The food maker. Not hobby gardeners. Not people who grew tomatoes on their balcony. Actual farmers. People who grew food at scale for income. People who understand agriculture as production, not hobby. Why farming expertise matters. Everyone knows plants grow from seeds. Almost nobody knows how to actually grow food successfully at survival scale. Farming is complex. Soil management, pest control, crop rotation, water management, harvest timing, seed saving, storage, processing. Each step has expertise that most people lack. The farmer's knowledge is comprehensive systems understanding. They know how to prepare soil. They understand fertilization without chemical fertilizers. They recognize plant diseases and nutrient deficiencies. They know companion planting and pest management. They understand growing seasons and climate variables. They can save seeds properly for next year's crop. They know harvest windows and storage methods. Post-collapse agriculture is pre-industrial agriculture. No chemical fertilizers, no pesticides, no diesel tractors. Success requires the knowledge that farmers had before industrial agriculture, knowledge that modern hobby gardeners don't have because they relied on purchased inputs. The farmer who worked with minimal inputs is the most valuable. Small-scale farmers, organic farmers, farmers in developing regions who never had access to chemical inputs, these people know how to grow food with what exists naturally. Their knowledge translates directly. Animal husbandry is bonus value. Farmers who raised livestock know animal care, breeding, feed management, and butchering. These skills provide protein, labor animals, and additional food security that pure crop knowledge doesn't. The timing matters. Initial collapse survival is stockpiled food. 3 to 6 months in, stockpiles deplete and people start desperately trying to grow food. Most fail because they don't know what they're doing. The experienced farmer succeeds where others fail, providing food when starvation starts becoming real. Why farmers over general laborers? Physical fitness and willingness to work matters, but knowledge is the multiplier. 10 strong people without farming knowledge produce less food than one experienced farmer directing their labor. The farmer knows what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. Everyone else is guessing. The farmer's value creates leverage. Communities need food. The person who can consistently produce food has negotiating power for resources, protection, and position. This isn't exploitation. It's market forces applying to food production capability. Scarce skills command premium compensation. The food producer also creates sustainable value. Plumbers and mechanics maintain existing systems. Farmers create new resources from sunlight and soil. This productive capability versus maintenance capability is subtle but significant. The farmer is generating wealth, not just preserving it. Why farming is underestimated. Pre-collapse. Farmers are often dismissed as low status, low education labor. Post-collapse. They're the foundation of survival. This status flip is dramatic. The corporate executive has nothing. The farmer feeds communities. Previous social hierarchies invert completely. Job 5. Welder and machinist. The fabricator, not general contractors, not carpenters. Specifically welders and machinists who work metal and fabricate parts. Why metal fabrication specifically? Wood rots, plastic degrades, metal persists. The infrastructure of civilization is metal: vehicles, tools, weapons, structural components, machinery, all metal. Keeping metal infrastructure functional and creating new metal components is critical for maintaining any technology above Stone Age. The welder's skill set is repair and creation. Broken structural metal can be welded. New tools can be fabricated from scrap. Vehicles can be repaired. Gates and barriers can be constructed. The welder transforms scrap metal into functional capability. The machinist's skill set is precision fabrication, creating parts that fit together, drilling, milling, lathing, making replacement components when original parts don't exist. This is the skill that keeps complex machinery functional when parts supply dries up. Combined, welding and machining are the foundation of maintaining industrial-level capability post-collapse. Everything else is temporary unless you can fabricate and repair metal components. The welder machinist is the person who can actually build things that last and fix things that break. Post-collapse fabrication is working with scrap. Not ordering stock steel and using new materials, reclaiming metal from destroyed vehicles, buildings, and equipment, understanding what metals can substitute for others, improvising without ideal materials or tools. This requires deeper understanding than modern fabrication that assumes perfect materials and conditions. The tool knowledge is transferable. Welders and machinists understand metallurgy, heat treatment, mechanical properties, and tool use. This knowledge applies to weapon making, fortification construction, vehicle modification, and countless other applications beyond pure fabrication. Why welding over carpentry? Wood construction is valuable, but wood is renewable and workable with basic tools. Metal construction requires specialized skills and equipment. The welder has scarce capability. The carpenter has common capability. Scarcity creates value. The welder also has tools that survive. Oxyacetylene welding equipment, arc welders that can run on generators, manual metalworking tools, these persist and function post-collapse. The welder with equipment is even more valuable because they have both skills and tools. The timing advantage, fabrication becomes critical as existing equipment breaks and needs repair or modification. Initially, things work as is. Months in, everything starts breaking and needs fixing or adapting. The fabricator becomes essential for maintaining capability. The community value is infrastructure. The welder builds the gates, repairs the vehicles, creates the tools, and maintains the equipment that keeps the community functional. This visible, tangible value creates job security and protection. Nobody threatens the person who just repaired their truck and built their security barriers. Job 6. Elementary school teacher, the knowledge multiplier. This is the surprising entry. But elementary school teachers have skills that become uniquely valuable in specific collapse scenarios. Why teachers specifically? Not because they teach academics, because they know how to transfer knowledge to people who don't have it. Teaching is a skill. Most experts can't teach. They know their domain but can't effectively communicate it to novices. Teachers can. The teacher's skill set is learning facilitation, breaking complex topics into manageable pieces, assessing understanding, adapting explanations to different learning styles, managing group dynamics. These skills apply to teaching any subject, not just reading and math. Post-collapse knowledge transfer is critical for rebuilding. The plumber needs to train apprentices. The farmer needs to teach others. The mechanic needs to pass on knowledge. Communities need to educate the next generation in practical survival skills. All of this requires teaching ability, not just expertise. The teacher can organize and run educational systems with minimal resources. No textbooks. They create curriculum from available materials. No classroom. They teach anywhere. No formal structure. They build one. Teachers are trained to create learning environments from nothing, which is exactly the post-collapse condition. The elementary specialization matters because elementary teachers teach fundamentals, not advanced specialized knowledge, but foundational skills. Reading, basic math, problem-solving, social skills. These foundations are what children need, and what many adults need refreshers on, when all the tech aids disappear. The community organizing capability is bonus value. Teachers manage 20-30 children daily, which means they're skilled at group organization, conflict resolution, and maintaining order. These skills transfer to community organizing and governance. Teachers often end up in leadership roles because they have the people management skills leaders need. The long-term value proposition. The teacher doesn't provide immediate survival value like plumbers or farmers, but they provide long-term rebuilding value. Communities that educate children are communities that persist across generations. Communities that don't teach the next generation lose knowledge and capability. The teacher is the investment in future, not immediate survival. Why teachers over other educators? Elementary teachers teach everything, not one subject. They're generalists who can teach reading, math, science, practical skills, whatever's needed. High school chemistry teachers who can only teach chemistry are limited. Elementary teachers, who can teach anything, are adaptable. The scarcity factor. In survival scenarios, education gets deprioritized. Everyone's focused on immediate survival. This means teachers are underutilized initially. But communities that survive past year one start thinking about children's future. That's when teacher value spikes. The person who can educate the next generation becomes critical for community persistence. The teacher's protection value is indirect but real. They're not critical like the plumber or farmer, but they're valuable enough that established communities protect them. And teachers often have the communication and social skills to negotiate their position effectively. They're not just skilled at teaching, they're skilled at persuasion, which is useful when advocating for their own value. Why these 6 and not others? These 6 jobs share specific characteristics that create post-collapse value. They solve persistent problems: water and sanitation, mobility and power, health, food, fabrication, knowledge transfer. These needs exist whether civilization is functioning or not. The skills address fundamental human requirements. They work with basic tools and materials. Plumbers work with pipe. Mechanics work with engines. Welders work with metal. Farmers work with soil. All of these exist post-collapse. Software engineers need computers and power grids. Financial analysts need markets. Their tools disappeared. They require extensive practical knowledge that can't be quickly learned. You can't read a book and become a plumber. You can't watch YouTube and become a diesel mechanic. The skills require years of hands-on experience that most people don't have. This creates scarcity. They scale beyond individual benefit. The plumber fixes water for the community. The mechanic keeps vehicles running for everyone. The farmer grows food for more than themselves. The value isn't just personal survival, it's community capability. This makes you worth protecting. They can train others. The knowledge isn't locked in your head forever. You can create apprentices who eventually become skilled. This means communities can grow capability over time, and you're the source of that growth. That's power. The jobs that don't translate. Understanding what doesn't work is as important as understanding what does. White-collar jobs evaporate. Lawyers, accountants, middle managers, HR professionals, financial advisors, insurance agents, real estate agents, entire career categories become irrelevant. The systems they operated within are gone. Their expertise has no application. Highly specialized doctors struggle. The neurosurgeon can't do neurosurgery without an operating room. The specialist trained in high-tech medicine finds their expertise unusable. General practitioners and ER doctors do better, but nurses and paramedics do better still because they're practical over theoretical. Technology workers face obsolescence. Software engineers, IT professionals, tech support, all dependent on functioning computer infrastructure. When computers die, their careers die. Some can transition to other problem-solving, but they're starting from scratch skill-wise. Service industry workers have minimal transferable skills. Baristas, retail workers, customer service, hospitality. These jobs taught customer interaction but little technical skill. They're reskilling from zero alongside everyone else. Creative professionals without practical output struggle. Graphic designers, marketing professionals, social media managers. Their skills were relevant to consumer economy. Post-collapse, nobody needs a logo. Some can transition to teaching or communication roles, but the specific job skills are worthless. The pattern is clear. Abstract knowledge jobs, coordination jobs within complex organizations, and jobs serving consumer demand that disappears. All valueless post-collapse. Concrete skills that produce tangible results, fix broken things and meet survival needs, valuable. the second-tier valuable jobs. These 6 are peak value, but other jobs have meaningful transferable skills. Veterinarians have medical knowledge that applies to humans in emergencies. They're trained for field work with limited resources. They understand anatomy, surgery, and medication. Not as directly applicable as nurses, but valuable. Electricians fix power systems. Less critical than plumbers initially, but increasingly valuable as communities establish renewable power. Solar panels and wind turbines need installation and maintenance. Construction workers build shelter and infrastructure. General contractors who understand structural building are valuable for rebuilding and fortification. Hairdressers and barbers have surprising social value. They're information hubs who people trust. In collapse, they become community coordinators and negotiators because they've built social capital through years of personal service. Butchers and food processors know preservation and preparation. As communities establish food production, they need processing capability. The person who can butcher an animal, smoke meat, and make sausage is valuable. Engineers with practical focus, civil, mechanical, can design infrastructure and solve technical problems. Not as immediately valuable as trades, but essential for larger-scale rebuilding. These are Tier 2 because they're either less immediately critical or more common than the top 6, but they're still substantially better than most careers post-collapse. Transitioning career value to survival value. If you have one of these 6 jobs, you need to understand how to leverage it post-collapse. Don't advertise broadly early. Having valuable skills makes you a target. Initially, keep your expertise quiet. You don't want everyone knowing you're the only mechanic in the area. Assess the situation before revealing capability. Is this a community that will value and protect you? Or is this a desperate group that will exploit you until you're used up? Choose who you work with carefully. Trade skills for security and resources. You're not doing free work. Your expertise commands payment. Fair payment in barter economy. You fix their water system, they provide food and protection for your family. Train selectively. Creating competitors dilutes your value. But training trusted people in basics creates allies and spreads capability without threatening your position. Balance sharing knowledge with maintaining expert status. Document what you know. If something happens to you, your knowledge shouldn't die. Written guides, taught apprentices, video if possible. Your legacy is knowledge transfer to the next generation. Position yourself as essential. Communities protect assets they can't replace. Make it clear that you're critical infrastructure, not optional. This creates security for you and your family. The advantage you already have. If you've worked one of these 6 jobs for years, you have survival advantage you might not have recognized. Your career wasn't just a paycheck. It was training for the collapse you hoped would never come. While others are figuring out how to survive from scratch, you're applying skills you've practiced daily for years. While others are learning from books and making beginner mistakes, you have expertise and experience. While others are competing for generic survival roles, you have specialized capability that communities need. This isn't guaranteed survival. Plenty of plumbers and mechanics have died in historical collapses, but it's massive advantage. You're starting from a position of value rather than desperation. That makes all the difference. The career choice you made years ago, maybe for practical reasons or maybe by chance, prepared you for survival in ways that most careers didn't. The skills you built weren't just employable pre-collapse, they're essential post-collapse. The bottom line. 6 pre-collapse jobs become the most valuable skills after: plumber, diesel mechanic, nurse or paramedic, farmer, welder and machinist, elementary school teacher. These aren't the highest paid jobs before collapse. They aren't the most prestigious. They aren't what career counselors recommend for maximum income, but they're the jobs that solve persistent human problems with practical hands-on skills using tools and materials that survive collapse. If you have one of these jobs, you have survival advantage. Your career prepared you for the worst-case scenario without you even knowing it. If you don't have one of these jobs, you know what to learn. You can't switch careers overnight, but you can learn welding, basic plumbing, diesel engine basics, medical first response, or farming. You can develop the second-tier skills that still provide value. You can position yourself to have something to offer beyond generic labor. The investment in these skills is dual purpose. They're useful now, providing income and capability in the current world. They're survival insurance for the world after collapse. You can't lose by having them. Everyone else is competing for whatever scraps remain when systems fail. The 6 are solving problems everyone has, doing work nobody else can do, providing value that communities will protect and resource. That's not privilege. That's the reward for skills that matter regardless of what world you're in. Choose your skills. Build your capability. Have something to offer that people need, not something that only mattered in the world that ended. When collapse comes, and historically it always does eventually, be the person communities are desperate to have, not the person communities can't feed. Be useful. That's the ultimate survival strategy.